Alright, this is day 7. This is now JFK in the Cold War. Maybe also Johnson, I guess, but mainly JFK, okay? So here we go. JFK is elected in a weird election in 1960. They televised the debates, and they liked JFK more than Nixon. But the biggest thing they wanted to discuss was the missile gap. And if you actually see right here in 1960, the Soviet had less than 10,000 missiles. I'd say maybe 1 to 2,000 looks like, etc., right? Whereas the United States has more than 10. So we have a 7-to-1 missile gap. In other words, we want to exploit that. We want to use that to our advantage and kind of get things our way that we wanted them. That's a bad idea. So we have a new Mediterranean rim, a new area that's susceptible to communism, and it's right in our own back door. It is the Latino countries of South America and also the Caribbean. So Kennedy announces an alliance for progress, and here he is in Venezuela being Venidos, right? You have him right there. And this is a mini Marshall Plan. Similar to the Marshall Plan, we're going to give you money, just don't fall to communism, just stay with us, we're going to help you. It fails because, unlike the Marshall Plan, we didn't have the money to back it up. Kennedy is also involved a lot with civil rights and helping economic opportunity, and there's not enough money to spread around. Also, our debt from the Marshall Plan is beginning to acquire, along with the Korean War debts, and we're also in Vietnam at this time helping out the French. So all that's kind of piling up, okay? Now, in South America, there exists kind of this larger-than-life man. His name is Ernesto, or Che Guevara, and his face is very synonymous, and you'll see him on murals all throughout Mexico and Guatemala, etc., as a sign of La Revolución, Viva la Revolución, Viva la Che. Now, who was Che Guevara? Initially, he was a doctor, and he studied all kind of these things, and he discovered communism was the answer, and he was willing to fight for it. So he's going to lead many, many revolutions in Latino America and South America and the Caribbean to help these countries become communist because he thought it was the best system for the poor people. Okay? Now, Cuba had long been, if you remember the last time we talked about Cuba, was after the Spanish-American War. It's a protectorate. There's American businesses. There's still a lot of poor people. A man named Fidel Castro is going to lead a revolution to kick out a guy named Fulgencio Batista, who was a military dictator. He was a horrible guy, actually backed up by the United States. And so he leads this kind of cultural revolution. Che Guevara shows up on the scene to help out. He has not made the announcement that it is a communist revolution per se. But what ultimately happens, he gains control of the island, and he'll do some structuring, and he kind of pushes himself away from the United States and just kind of sets himself, and he's listening to Che Guevara about socialism. He's not aligned with the Soviet Union yet, all these different things, okay? Now, Che Guevara is kind of responsible for what is called the pink tide or pink wave, and it's basically where all these countries here in Latino America are going to be either susceptible to or fall to some type of communist dictatorship or communist government in the years following. And it's kind of crazy that that's in our back door, and we don't like this, but that's what happens, okay? Now, with Cuba, basically, we're going to call them pro-communist at this point. Kennedy inherited a plan from Eisenhower and others on assassinating Fidel Castro. So we can't go in there and make it look like we're doing all this. So we trained some Cuban exiles in Guatemala, and we're going to help them through a series of airstrikes, gain position on the land, and take their island back. These expatriates, as they were called, kicked out. What ultimately happens, however, is due to some mishaps with a previous bombing, we're not able to send our full support, and we set these people up for slaughter. And a lot of them are killed instantly or surrender, and the bad thing is it can be linked back to the United States, hence the political cartoon of the Cuban cigar blowing up in Kennedy's face. And if you can read the little wrapper, it actually says Cuban fiasco, or a big disaster, right? This does not look good on Kennedy. This does not look good on the United States. Uh, Cuba actually said the United States military looked weak and disorganized. This is not the way we want to be remembered, right? Now, Kennedy had two advisors, and we're going to call them the Roberts. There is his brother, Robert Kennedy, who was the Attorney General. He's really focused on civil rights. He's the one that brought the attention of James Meredith and Dr. King and all these things to JFK to talk about. The other is his Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, who is a major player in Vietnam, a major player in World War II, a major player in everything in the 60s. In fact, there's a great video I show you at the end of class called The Fog of War, and it's basically his life and his lessons we need to learn if we don't want to keep killing each other. Okay. They urged President Kennedy to develop what is called flexible response, meaning we can have these nuclear weapons, but we also need to have conventional warfare, because if we go in there and we basically, if the Soviets protect this island and they invade this island and call it communist, and we roll in with this just a nuclear weapon, they're going to nuke us. So we've got to be prepared so that we don't run into a nuclear holocaust. A nuclear holocaust is a byproduct of the MAD concept. Basically, the whole world would end. And so this is what we're really afraid of, and it's leading up into something really, really big here, okay? And that is in 1962 is the closest we've ever come to a nuclear holocaust. It is called the Cuban Missile Crisis. Following the Bay of Pigs, we have this episode kind of like maybe ladies. Your mother does not like the boyfriend you're bringing around, and so they try to distance yourself. And so you said, you can't tell me what to do, and you draw closer. Your parents, by trying to protect you, will actually drive you deeper into this person's arms. So by us trying to kill Castro, we actually drove Cuba into the arms of the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union said to the United States, let us put some nuclear weapons in your country 60 to 90 miles away from the United States, and that'll teach them. So a U-2 spy plane, and in the waning moments of October, see these, and we wig out. Oh my gosh, there are nuclear weapons 60 to 90 miles away. What are we going to do? So first thing Kennedy does is he blockades Cuba. These boats are coming down. They're saying they're going to run through the blockade. If they run through the blockade, all heck's going to break loose. We're going to bomb them. They're going to bomb us. Ultimately, in the end, it said that Khrushchev blinked. Kennedy blinked. We both blinked. We made concessions. Khrushchev agreed to pull the missiles out of Cuba if we did two things. Number one, we left Cuba alone. And number two, was kind of unknown at the time, we had missiles missiles in Turkey pointed at the Soviet Union prior to this, and so they wanted those removed as well. And so through these concessions made by both sides, the Cuban Missile Crisis came to an end. But we were about 15 minutes away, guys, from none of us, myself included, I was born in 1982, ever existing. The world would have ended. And that danger still exists today. We have more nuclear weapons today, more countries, and so it's really important we have the right people calling these shots and making these decisions. That's why your vote matters when you go and select these people, okay? So, now here you go. As I said, they blinked. Neither side really wanting the crisis. Now, what does it lead to? A nuclear hotline was developed between Washington, D.C. and Moscow to call. Now, you have a cell phone, but back then you had to connect to operators, etc. So they would call and they'd go, hey, can we resolve this peacefully, etc.? Both Kennedy and Khrushchev are seen as being soft, and in fact, both of them lose power in '63. Ultimately, this leads to the Vietnam War. Khrushchev is removed in '64. Kennedy is shot in '63, and we get involved in the Vietnam War, which is even more chaotic. Now, one positive thing that did come out of this is we have the first of many nuclear treaties. This is called the Limited Test Ban Treaty, or Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. The whole purpose is to never have another Cuban Missile Crisis. And so they basically banned all types of testing, save in outer space. And that kind of leads to the race to the moon in '64. They start picking on that. The whole idea was to improve these relations and develop these hotlines. Okay, the next videos are about the Vietnam War, and that's where it gets good.